Sam Cedar weighed in on this hashtag force the vote conversation, and I want to talk about it because his response, I think, is a little unfortunate. Let's take a look.
I don't know whether to credit this or not. I read some of the comments on Facebook, and some people were saying that on Twitter rather, that they had sources that suggested that there were some folks in Congress or on their staffs that wanted to kill the force the vote movement, and I just wasn't sure if it was someone affiliated with a congressperson or not.
No.
Okay, so the question about step 2, I think, is that I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the point at which it became kind of bad faith from my perspective was largely around folks who are making this argument that we don't know what step 2 is, right? And to me, it's obvious. You withhold the vote in exchange for any number of concessions, which it's always been, my argument has always been, it's a floor vote on Medicare for all, because I think that's what draws the greatest amount of spectacle. And it's an issue that is number one in the minds of Americans right now, as 15 million people have just lost their employer-based health care in the middle of this crisis. We all know how exigent the issue is. But in addition to that, as soon as David Sirota put out his excellent article about what all the other asks could be, including getting rid of Richie Neal, including getting rid of PAYGO in its entirety, I said yes. And I included all of those asks and linked to Sirota's article in the article that I wrote very early in all of this, I think in mid-December. And so it was always about a lot of asks, including the ones that you just said were going to be the priority instead of Medicare for all. So if the issue is step 2, then that would be the same if you're asking for these narrow PAYGO exemptions that they got. And it would be the same as we were asking for more.
So let me just run down exactly what it is that Brianna Gray is saying here. So basically, the idea is that hashtag force the vote was this idea that Jimmy Dore came up with, but who cares who came up with it because it's a great idea. It's this idea where you withhold your vote for Speaker Nancy Pelosi and you get some things for your vote. You get something for your vote, right? That's what you should be doing. It's politics 101, right? Well, everyone attacked Jimmy Dore in bad faith, and they attacked his character. They said that hashtag force the vote was a thing about Jimmy and not a thing about the movement, which is ridiculous because, I mean, I think you and I both understand that we all just want to vote on Medicare for all, full stop. Like, everything else is just, minor details that is, stuff that's in between, all the fucking shit that doesn't matter, right? We just want to see results. As a utilitarian, the ends justify the means. I don't care about the progress. I don't care that you're slowly moving into a great, environment where you can pass Medicare for all easier or whatever. I don't care. I just care about the result. Just give me the fucking Medicare, right? That's what we want, right? That's what we want. And so everyone responded and said, well, listen, what's step 2? What are you going to do after that? What if it votes and it passes? What's next? What if you vote on it and if it doesn't pass, what's next? Right? And of course, the obvious response is, well, if it passes, then it goes to the Senate. That's what happens. But if it fails, then who's actually who. Right? When you have to vote and the time matters, then that's the time to exploit who you really are, right? That's the time to exploit who someone else is. Vote on something that makes them look bad, right? Put them in a tough position where they have to show who they are, right? And a vote on Medicare for all would have done that. And so I was completely in favor of hashtag force the vote. Unfortunately, I didn't start my stream before that, which I would have done a lot of videos in favor of Jimmy Dore's argument of hashtag force the vote. I think he's on the right side of the issue here. I think Brianna Joy Gray is on the right side of the issue here. Let's hear Sam Cedar's discussion about why, the whole, what about step 2 thing? Take a listen.
Right. So it seemed to me that the what is step 2, which is what AOC said to Justin Jackson, right? In that Twitter thread. That's where the tone shifted from my perspective. When AOC weighed in that Twitter thread and offered up a bunch of responses that didn't seem especially credible. What is step 2? We just have to fight for $15 minimum wage. That's priority. That's when the tone shifted away from the progressive caucus more broadly, and Mark Pocan specifically, to why is it that we're kind of being fed what feels like a misdirection? And is this really a crisis, a tactical disagreement, or is this a crisis of political will or something else going on here, or deals being made that don't necessarily inure to the benefit of the voting public?
Well, let me just address those in order. I mean, one, I take exception with the two premises that you start off with. One, that a vote of 300 approximately, let's assume the 118 who have co-sponsored the bill vote for it in the House. Maybe you get one or two other people. I don't know. Maybe, but let's call it 125. You will then have approximately 320 people voting against it. Now, your sense is that this is the most prominent issue amongst people, I guess, presumably because we're in a pandemic. I don't know that it's any less pressing because we're in a pandemic. I think if we have Medicare for all, it certainly would have made things a little bit easier, but I don't know that would have had a material difference. But we just tested the premise of whether and I have no doubt, I've seen all the polling, the people support Medicare for all. Mm-hmm. How strong that support is. If in the nature, let's say the vote happened this week, they lose 325 to 125.
Yeah, really? But that would mean that 300 people voted against Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. You put that on every ad and you put that in an ad and run someone against them with just that ad, and that's all you need. Right? Like, just by the way, if you want to beat Biden in 2024, all you have to say is he promised you $2,000 checks. He didn't give them to you. You know why? Because he's corrupt. That's all you have to say and you win. That's all you would have to say and you would win. Because, I mean, being honest, seeing when you see people say or vote certain ways, then you know who they are. And voting against Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic says a lot about who you are, right? It's not just a vote 2 years ago. It's a vote in the middle of a pandemic. Well, I guess that's kind of important. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the whole fucking point, don't you think? Oh, I guess, yeah. Come on, Sam. Come on. Okay, let's keep going.
Argument is that this is going to make people rise up because of that. And I just don't see any evidence of it. We know that Bernie represented Medicare for all in the Democratic primary. That was not sufficient for him to beat Joe Biden. We know that 3 years ago, there was a vote that was shut down in the Senate. I don't know if people remember that, but that, I think, so I'm not convinced that step number 2, frankly, does bring about what you suggest it does.
So
because you laid out a bunch of things, sure. I want to address them.
I want to just, because I can pause and Brianna Great can't. So let me just say something real quick. Obamacare was. Let me just say something real quick about Obamacare. Real quick story about Obamacare. Obamacare was a step in the right direction. It was like the smallest step in the right direction you could have possibly made at the time. And in many ways, you made steps back, but it was like a step in the right direction. So at the time, everyone kind of understood that. Like, everyone saw Obamacare as a win. But then what happened? The Republicans started framing Obamacare as this bad, evil policy. And how did they do that successfully, right? They didn't just go on TV and talk about how bad Obamacare was. They voted to repeal Obamacare over 50 fucking times. And so you keep hearing in the news, Obamacare was repealed in the House. 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 Right? And so if you hear in the Senate, Medicare for all was voted on and it failed. Medicare was voted on and it failed. people hear the word Medicare for all, right? They start hearing Medicare for all and they start realizing like, oh, what is that? And they start looking it up. See, this is exactly how every fucking movement has ever worked, right? Look at the women's right to vote, right? Women's suffrage movement. You have some votes, some sporadic votes here and there. And then all of a sudden everything fucking explodes and everyone starts telling, hey, let's force the vote in the House, right? And they did. They voted on it and it failed, and they voted on it and it failed, right? It was voted on. The whole women's rights issue was not just something that just they got together and they decided and they moved on, right? It was something that was fought over for many, many years. So yeah, it's called progress. You keep pushing. You aggressively push the progress, and then it gets the attention that it deserves. And so when you have Democrats not doing that and you have Republicans repealing Obamacare, then everyone's just going to realize, hey, we live in a fucked up US and it looks like the Republicans are the only thing trying to do something different, right? And so they attach to that Obamacare is bad philosophy mindset, and it worked. And look at all the Republicans that hate Obamacare. Even though you talk to a lot of them and they benefit from that policy directly. So let's keep going. Let's see what Sam has to say.
And so I'm not convinced that of that step number 2. I mean, it's an argument. Like I say, I don't think I ever came out and directly, attacked, forced the vote. Frankly, I mean, I think I commented on it subsequent to.
So let me just say, and I'm speaking to myself here as well. If you did not participate in hashtag force the vote, then what were you doing? Right? For me, like, I didn't go on this channel and talk about hashtag force the vote. I regret that decision, right? I regret not doing videos around hashtag force the vote and talking about how Jimmy Dore was right. I regret that. Sam looks at it as, I didn't say anything. I didn't pick a side. And so because I didn't pick a side, I must be on the right side of the issue. But then I'm going to argue against force the vote at the same time. Let's keep going.
The attack that Jimmy had on AOC. I appreciate, Sorota's article and what you added to it. If you go to forcethevote.org, none of that's on there. And that has been the thrust of the strategy. I agree that there were other things that they could have leveraged.
That's a terrible attack.
I don't agree on the PAYGO being so narrow. In fact, I think there's a tremendous amount of stuff. In fact, everything that is being talked about in the news, the $1.9 trillion, everything from the HEROES Act, which is over $3 trillion bill, could go through that, what you call narrow,
Right. It's narrow, Sam, because it only applies to things that are related to COVID and the Green New Deal.
Everything right now is arguably a function of the pandemic. We have 900.
You're talking about the COVID bill being enabled by the PAYGO exemption, which is true because the PAYGO exemption was for
not just the COVID bill, but everything.
But Sam, it's for COVID-related things and it's for the Green New Deal.
And Joe Biden. But wait a second. Let me just finish this, Bree.
But I just want to correct this while we go along.
There were things that you said that I disagreed with. I waited till you were done and then I corrected them. In fact, what I'm talking about is a correction. I think Joe Biden is proposing a.
Look at how he looks right now, right? Like, he looks like he's fumbling. Like, and that's the thing about every, like, look at how the Humanist report responded to Jimmy Dore's hashtag force the vote. And I want to pull that up real quick.
This turned into this really huge thing that has led to 50% of the left online hating the other 50% of the left online.
Real quick, just before we go, I want to explain that this is a perfect example of lazy political analysis. When you say the left is attacking the left, you have 50% of the left on one side, 50% of the left on the other side. No, that's not how you fucking frame it, right? You have people attacking from the left and you have people attacking from the right, right? That gives you so much more information. That way you understand which one's attacking from the left and which one's fucking attacking from the right, right? It gives more information. Not giving that information as a political analyst is lazy on purpose. You're lazy. Right? So what it really is, it's not 50% of the left attacking 50% of the left, right? This is the whole teams thing, right? This is the whole vote blue because everyone on the blue team's the right team, right? That's not how it should work. That is not how it should work. But that's what this is being encouraged. Mike is encouraging that. Let's keep going.
And it seems like a large portion of people on left Twitter and YouTube now hate members of the squad because ultimately Force the Vote was not successful in getting them to get a floor vote on Medicare for All. It's kind of a mess, but I do feel like after watching way too many hours of Force the Vote material.
He did his research. Keep that in mind. He did his homework.
I've listened to a lot of takes, both from proponents of Force the Vote and people who are critical of it. I feel like I do have a pretty solid and objective perspective on this because I've heard out both sides. And so my observation...
So he's building his perspective as objective. He's building it... I think I have an objective view, right? Someone who has an objective view doesn't need to say that they have an objective view.
Are going to be based largely on generalizations, but I think that what I have to say, I think it's useful, and I kind of contemplated whether or not I should even talk about this because I don't want to talk about something that is very clearly dividing the left, which...
This is exactly why we can't progress in society, is when people say, oh no, they're fighting! Oh no, we can't progress if they're fighting. So if there's fighting, we just can't talk about it. Right? If there are Democrats that still want to legalize AR guns and we're fighting with them, then we can't talk about it. I don't want to get involved because it's divisive. You're a fucking political... You're a commentator for politicians and for politics and for... Like, what's your fucking job? Explain it to me, right? I'm confused here. You're supposed to be doing what? You're supposed to be looking into what? See, he's admitting to you that he's doing his homework and he's intentionally not going to weigh in. Really? You did your homework and you're not going to tell us you don't want to get involved. You hesitate because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. If you have people saying that, then they don't actually have a solid philosophical objective like foundation to be behind what they're doing, right? They're using their feels. That's what's really going on here. All right, let's keep going.
Hurts us overall, but I think that in order to move forward, there has to be healing, and in order to have healing, you have to talk about things. Like you can't just.
So if you want healing, right? You just gotta talk about it. That's what you do. You just talk about it, right? But don't talk about it because it's divisive. You don't have an opinion, Mike. This is just word salad. This is such fucking word salad, right? I'm not going to say that.
Sweep it under a rug. So let's talk about it. So when it comes to Force the Vote, there's two main camps. One camp, as this image explains, they just simply want progressives to withhold a vote for Nancy Pelosi to become Speaker of the House unless she agrees to, get a floor vote on Medicare for All. Now, baked into this demand is this assumption that we know about the inevitability of Nancy Pelosi. We know that she's probably going to become Speaker again because there's no other challenger to the left of Nancy Pelosi.
No, we don't know that. We don't know that. We didn't know that. So just to clarify, there were CNN journalists interviewing, or I think it's CNN. There were journalists interviewing AOC before her vote on Nancy Pelosi, asking her, are you going to vote for Nancy Pelosi? And so journalists are curious. Why are journalists curious? Because they know that Nancy Pelosi is going to be voted in? No, because they were wondering, like, is she going to vote for Nancy Pelosi or isn't she? And it turned out she didn't originally, and then she did. So, okay.
If it's not Nancy Pelosi, it's probably someone worse than Nancy Pelosi, to the right of Nancy Pelosi, like Steny Hoyer or Hakeem Jeffries. So knowing that she's going to be speaker again, try to get something out of it. Try to extract some concession, and the concession that we want is a floor vote on Medicare for all.
Politics 101. Use leverage when you have it. Yes. Why is that hard to understand? Why is that hard?
We know it's not going to pass. We know this won't actually get us Medicare for all, but we think we can use this as ammunition to strengthen our position and,
So first off, Jimmy Dore did not say that we know we're not going to have Medicare for all. Jimmy Dore consistently said that if we pass Medicare for all, it could pass. And he's right. Imagine not voting for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. Like, imagine doing that. That's not going to, you're not going to get reelected. Full stop, right? You're not going to get reelected. There's no way. Why is that? Because Medicare for all is like one of the most important issues and the most important policies and the most popular policies currently suggested in the US. And you're saying that it might not pass if it passes the House. If it passes the House, then it could pass the Senate, then it could pass the executive branch. Why would Joe Biden vote for it when he says he won't vote? He won't vote for it. He said that twice on TV. Why could Joe Biden vote for Medicare for all? Because he has political pressure. Because people are using leverage against him. That's why. How do you move Biden to the left? You don't ask nicely, Mike. You don't wait for a random day to say, hey, can you please consider Medicare for all? No, when you have opportunity to use leverage, you use it. I'm going to keep playing a little bit more and then we'll keep talking.
Democrats go on the record, like, show your cards. Who's going to go on the record and deny their constituents Medicare for all during a pandemic? So that's one side. The other side says, this isn't really a good idea. Now, I've heard multiple takes as to why they think this isn't a good idea. And I'll tell you which camp I fall in after I explain their position. But on Chap Out Trap House, Will Menaker made the point that, you know what, this is just going to hurt our cause because it's going to demoralize people. They're going to see Medicare for all fail, and they're going to get disappointed and want to check out of politics.
So here's my response to that. It's a pretty simple response. Is that what happened with the Tea Party and Obamacare when they voted for it over 50 fucking times? Right? They got defeated over 50 fucking times. You would think if this thing that Mike is talking about here is true, you would think that the Republicans would have looked like clowns, that they look like morons. Wrong. It worked. It fucking worked. Everyone was looking at the Tea Party like, damn, they're working hard for their constituents. Look at that. People admired that. People liked that. And all of a sudden, being against Obamacare became popular. What do you know? What do you know? What do you know? So what Mike is saying here is completely wrong. Let's keep going.
I'm paraphrasing, of course. There are some individuals who will say, you know what, this isn't a good idea because it's going to put us in a worse off position, because then Nancy Pelosi can point to the failure of this to pass and she'll say, look.
Sorry, I might have, in the last argument, I might have been directing my argument against Mike, but he didn't take that position. So if I use the word Mike, I meant to say whoever was holding that position. Let's keep going.
I told you, it's not popular. We can't pass it. So overall, after listening to all of these arguments, weighing out the pros and the cons, I ultimately do fall into the camp of force the vote. Ironically, I found out about force the vote through Sam Cedar when he talked about Jimmy Dore coming up with the strategy. And I thought, oh my God, this could be something that's amazing, because if you have Jimmy Dore and Sam Cedar agreeing on something, two individuals who hate each other's guts, this really could be something that, you know, we all coalesce around and unify the left. But it's
so it sounds like he's behind force the vote. It sounds like he's behind it. Let's keep going.
Turned out to be like the opposite, where now everyone hates each other more than ever. And you see people online, Cenk Uygur, Jimmy Dore, taking lots of shots against each other. And it is getting ugly. I mean, that is hard to watch. Like, I've watched these guys over the years. And this is like watching two titans in our bubble, in our echo chamber, go at it.
And they're fighting. Okay. Let's see where this goes.
It's like, Tupac versus Biggie, Jay-Z versus Nas. And so it's tough to watch. And I don't think it needs to be this way. I'm in the camp of force the vote. I think that this is a good strategy, but I think that we have to acknowledge that there are valid criticisms from allies who definitely support Medicare for all. But when things started to go downhill was when the factionalization really started to happen. There was a clip of Jimmy Dore basically screaming at AOC, saying, everyone is turning against you. Humanist Report is now turning against you. Kyle Kalinske.
Do you hear his argument? Do you hear what he's saying? Like, people are getting divisive, and then you have Jimmy Dore attacking AOC. Let's see where he goes with this argument. You probably know where he's going with this argument. Let's keep going.
He's turning against you. And my response to that is, you've got to calm the fuck down, Jimmy. Like, here's the thing. I don't like the criticisms that Jimmy Dore is just doing this for clicks. He's a grifter. I believe Jimmy Dore believes in this. That's why he's angry. And look, he has a right to be angry. But you've got to acknowledge that if somebody sees, Jimmy Dore screaming at AOC, calling her a sellout, fuck you, you don't support this strategy, it's going to turn off a lot of people and think, okay, this doesn't seem like a good strategy if you're just going to yell at AOC. She's already on our side.
So just to let everyone know, this video that the Humanist Report released got 36,000 views. Jimmy Dore gets over like 15,000 viewers on his live stream. So, and on top of that, Jimmy Dore has 3 times as many subs. So I'm really confused why Mike thinks he has the authority to say what he's saying right now. Let's keep, like, even though he's yelling, his yelling is making him popular. Why is it making him popular? Why is he getting popular? And Jimmy Dore describes, it's because what he's saying is correct. Who fucking cares if he's yelling? I yell. Are you going to cry about it? The one thing that Steven Crowder, if you guys all remember that guy, I don't know what happened to him, but he had this cup, this mug that said like liberal tears or whatever. Like, I like that concept. Like, I want, like, if you're going to cry about progress, then you're not a progressive. Does that make sense? If that's hard to understand, like, progress, progressive. If you're anti-progress, you're not a progressive. So if you don't want to vote on Medicare for all, that means you don't believe in Medicare for all. Okay, so here's the thing about voting that everyone needs to understand, and this is just a philosophy. Your vote is something that you should absolutely value. Don't give it to people by default. Don't just give it to someone, right? You use your vote as leverage yourself, just like AOC can. You can use your vote as leverage, right? So think of it this way. Imagine if every American said, if you want my vote, you need to give me $1,000 a month and you get my vote. You give me $1,000 a month and I'll vote for you. That was Andrew Yang's kind of argument, right? But Andrew Yang also fought for Medicare for all, and then Andrew Yang decided to go against UBI and a Medicare for all. So it turns out he's a fucking capitalist and he loves slavery. So that sucks. It's really unfortunate. So anyone who says that you should use a vote for strategy, right? People who vote for strategy end up fucking up the system, right? And this is probably why so many people in America hate Americans. It's like over 50% now. They think that the people are the problem, not necessarily the economic system. And I kind of understand that, because the thing is, the people keep voting in these morons. They still are. They are. Right? People are voting for Biden, even though, in theory, your vote, let me tell you how you should vote. You should vote with value, like have value to your vote. If you give it away for free, then you're giving a free vote. Okay. Then I guess, and the thing is, if you're giving your vote for free, then I don't want to talk to you, right? Because what's the point, right? You're not wanting to use your vote wisely anyways. So then what's the point? So the way you use your vote is you vote for the best possible candidate. Full stop. Every time. Every time. So when you vote for Nancy Pelosi, that's because you believe in Nancy Pelosi. If you vote against Medicare for all, that's because you don't believe in Medicare for all. If you vote for Joe Biden, that means, and it's represented, and it happens, that means that you like Joe Biden. That means you support Joe Biden, right? You're giving him something. You're giving him something extremely valuable too, by the way. And you're getting nothing for it. You're such a sucker if you voted for Biden. I did not vote for Biden. I voted for the Green Party. And the reason I voted for the Green Party is because they were the best candidate. They offered a $20 minimum wage, a Green New Deal, Medicare for all. Now, you might say, well, they are a very small third party. But the thing is, your vote doesn't fucking matter. The point of your vote is to be represented, right? Think about voting like you do a census, right? Why should you be in a census? Because your fucking 1 point matters? Your one little increase to your addition of 1 to the population in the US is really insignificant, right? Especially considering the sig figs, right? So who fucking cares, right? Why should you be in the Senate census? Why should you participate? Well, because you should be represented. That's why. You should be represented. And so if I want to be represented, I'm not going to be represented if I show that I support Joe Biden. That's me not being represented. So I chose the best party. And I'm proud that I was represented. It was a small portion, but that's because you all keep voting for the wrong person. I say you all, and I'm trying to be nice as possible. I don't mean all of you. Not all of you voted for Biden. But for those of you who did, this is what you asked for. And you end up with the same person as Donald Trump, but with a neat little bow. That's what you got. You got Donald Trump with a neat little bow. We're 6-7 days in now. We're like a week in. And we still don't know how many vaccines we fucking have. We don't know how many we're producing. We don't know how many we're getting. We don't know any of that. Do you know who also didn't know any of that? Donald Trump. You want to explain to me what the difference is between the two yet? Because I still don't see any, right? Like Biden reversed an executive order from Donald Trump. Well, actually, no, he didn't. I did a story about how Joe Biden didn't pull out of Yemen, even though he said he would by executive order. Like it's unfortunate, but the point is, everything that we are seeing unfolding from Joe Biden should not surprise you. And if it does surprise you, then you're not paying attention, and you need to start paying attention, because all the consequences that you get as Joe Biden being president are going to happen. And one of the consequences is most likely a revolution, a full-scale revolution. And I think it'll be peaceful. I don't think there'll be violence, but I think there will be a revolution. I do. And I think that we will transition, we'll be one of the, I hope that we're one of the first countries to fully push to a worker co-op society. That would be really cool, because then we would absolutely fucking dominate the world stage.